All right. Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. All right. Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. We may have a double beginning again. I don't know. This thing is.
Four
It
intros in
says,
one night.
I know. It says it starts, and then the zero, it says 000, and it doesn't start. So, thanks for staying with us. If we look similar to our last episode, it's because we're similar to our last episode. So, Mark changed his hat because he's got a thing about wearing the same hat twice. I haven't changed anything. I took a hit from an inhaler so I don't cough all the time. We'll see how that works out. So, yeah, that's whatever gets me through the show, I guess. It's been a long day. All right. This episode, I'm gonna let Mark explain it. It's his idea, and we're gonna kind of let him drive the show, which is a frightening thing. So, Mark, take it away.
Yeah, let's do our best here. This episode's called "So You Want to Be a Match Director." So you've watched this show, you've thought, "Boy, I don't know why I still keep watching this, but hey, I think this might be interesting to me. That I want to be a match director. I want to make this stuff happen. I watch these videos for some reason, and I want to see this where I am. Maybe you watch this in California or Utah, somewhere where we don't see a lot of these big matches, and you think, let's bring this to me. How do I bring this to me? And so, in this case, even though it seems like the same as we always do, I have brought together a two match directors that run and gun and three gun. And now I want them to pass their information on to you so that you can make this happen for your range. And I can also learn from this, and I want to learn from this because my personal range, the range that I'm a member of, we only do USPSA right now. We do a little bit of like NRL 22, but let's get some of that stuff to my range. So how could I do this? I'm going to ask some questions to these guys who do this for years. They've done it for years. How can I do this? How can I bring three gun? How can I bring run and gun to my range? And that's what we want to give to you so that you can do those same things. So we've got a couple of things going. Tiger is just running run and gun. Ryan is running three gun as well as some small run and gun at his range. And so we've got a couple of topics here. And the big thing is I guess the first thing is politics. You say politics, that's a dirty word, right? But what it means is you have to kind of have some level of ownership at a range to have control of it, right? And so if you have a private range here in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to have a match, let's start with politics because nothing at gun ranges just happens. You have to make things happen. So, how do you, as somebody who watches this podcast, make something happen? So, I want to start with Ryan because I was there with Ryan in the beginning.
Oh, you froze.
Mark froze.
Oh,
Oh,
froze for a
okay.
second.
You were with
Okay.
Ryan
Yeah.
at the beginning.
All right.
Sure.
In the
So
beginning.
I was there with Ryan in the beginning at Clinton County in Ohio, where he took over and he started with three gun. And we had some three gun, we had some issues, we had some leadership problems. And Ryan took over and he established a good match and he built on that. So I want to start with Ryan, first of all, taking over, getting leadership. So this, I guess this should be another way to put it. We had a little bit of three gun there. So we built on that for Ryan. And then how do we build on top of that? So start with just, we had a match. How do we make that better? Ryan, could you talk to
Yeah.
that?
Yep. So, I'm thankful. I built my match on. You say like this old saying, like the shoulder of giants. We had some people that match has been around. It's the longest running three gun match in Ohio. It outlasted. It was before Three Gun Nation. It lasted till obviously after Three Gun Nation. So getting that started in the beginning, I wasn't around for. I've been shooting it at that place for 8 years now. Um, But when I came in, we had within recent history, and as I had worked there and volunteered, people that ran some things. There were some issues with some things that happened at the match, safety wise. That what wasn't anything dangerous. People on the board didn't like how it was done, the communication, and we had a match director leave. We had other people take over. There's a lot of chaos. So when I came in, my first goal was, one, get a really good rapport with the rest of the board members, the people who make decisions, the safety committee, everyone. So pretty quickly, once I started taking over, I actually got voted on the board because they had an election coming up. I got voted on the board immediately. My assistant director, Niles Davis, he is also on the board. So both kind of match directors are there at most all the meetings, which is nice. Before I was on the board, I actually came to some meetings just to kind of be there to speak up if someone needed to voice something for Three Gun. But I think taking some ownership, like Mark said, getting people. They're always looking for volunteers. Get people who participate in the sport volunteering at the range, and kind of get out there. See that you're not just showing up just to run a match. You're showing up to make the range better. I think a big thing. I don't want to, I guess, brag on myself, but I made a pretty intentional decision early on to be as transparent with everything that I was doing on the range in the match as I could. And if there was anything new, different, even if it was, there's things we do in Three Gun. They're not unsafe, but to people who aren't in competitive sports, it doesn't always look that way. People run around with guns or throwing them in barrels or doing this, that. So I think sometimes it's worth just having the conversation before. Hey, I'll give an instance. We, I don't think we had done it before I took over. If I did, I forget about it. But to holster guns, because it's excuse me, they don't want us hot holstering for good reason at the range. So I explained, hey, I'm gonna, in a stage, I'm gonna do, it's not a hot holster. I'm gonna have them drop a magazine, shoot at a target. The RO knows their gun's empty now because they saw the magazine leave, and then they're gonna holster. So if someone's out there from the board, the safety committee, just a member, and sees, hey, that guy just hot holstered, we can't do that here. Well, I can, the board people can go and say, no, Ryan's doing this, it's fine. There's a handful of things like that. Just be transparent, keep everyone in the loop. I don't think that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission is a very good strategy when it comes to boards and safety committees and stuff like that. I think hitting that off beforehand and just keeping everyone on the same page is a way to really kind of keep the loop closed. And a lot of this stems from the issues they had before was just miscommunication. People said they were going to do this, so-and-so didn't understand, then there was a problem. Well, if we just make sure everyone understands right off the bat that there's no issues. And did that answer the question, or did I go off on a tangent?
Nope, that's perfect. And so to build on that, another thing that we used to do when Ryan was first getting into this role was that in the safety briefing of any match, when we were doing Three Gun, was we'd say, hey, thank you for being here. You don't have to be a member to shoot, but we would really like it if you would become a member, because now we're building up the membership of competitive shooters. And the other thing that goes along with that is not just building up members that are competitive shooters, but hey, could we see you at a match? Or excuse me, could we see you at a meeting? And then when we go to vote for Ryan, suddenly half the people in the room in those meetings, typically, any gun range that I've been in, no one shows up to the meetings. But when you're at the meeting and half the people are already shooters, half of the people are shooting Three Gun, USPSA, whatever, and suddenly Ryan's saying, hey, I'd like to be on the board, half the room says, yes, I vote Ryan onto the board. we get that representation. That's the big thing there, is that, I don't want to say FUD because FUD kind of becomes a derogatory term here, but there's a lot of people that just want to shoot a piece of paper one time a month, and that's not moving the club forward. And so when we have these people that shoot competitively and shoot practically and then show up for these meetings, now we can start to move the club ahead, because those people are there voting, literally in-person voting, saying, yes, Ryan represents us. We'd like to see that. We'd like to see that our club go in that direction. That was one of the things that we pushed in terms of just, hey, you've just showed up for your first meeting or your first shoot. We'd love to have you shoot 3-gun. That's great. We always want as many people as we can. But if you enjoy this, consider joining. A lot of clubs, $100 a year, not a big deal. You get to shoot when we're not doing competitive stuff. But hey, let's take this a step further. Could you show up on one Wednesday a month, and when we have votes, you raise your hand and say, yes, 3-gun is a big reason that I'm here. How can we move this forward? And so that's how we get people like Ryan, not sketchy people like Ryan, you can't really trust him, but we move that kind of thing forward in terms, this is a joke. Ryan's a very steadfast person, but
no one else would say, yes, that's how I got to where I'm at, basically.
So the idea is that we built slowly. So we said we're having matches. All right, we're having matches. Anyone can come shoot the matches. You could be from Kentucky, Indiana, whatever. But hey, if you're coming to shoot our matches, consider joining. If you're considering joining, considering show up for the meetings. If you're at the meetings, let's vote in favor of our sport. And so we kind of built in that way in terms of that range. And we've seen this in other ranges. This works. This isn't just something that happened at one range in Ohio. This is something that happens at a lot of ranges where we build that momentum of people that support what we do. So I think that leads to what you're talking about, Ryan, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Now, I'd be curious. I think Tiger's experience is kind of on the opposite end of that, because, well, let's hear Tiger's, because the range that he's running his match at now is not like a range with a voted on board per se, but there's still going to be politics involved. So maybe share that side of it.
Yeah. So, and kind of going back a little bit, obviously I started MDing at Rockcastle, right? And Rockcastle, famously only ever said no to a rocket launcher. Like pretty much anything else went. So, that was actually a really interesting place to start, because I had complete freedom, right? Like I could do whatever I wanted. And then of course, they closed, and suddenly I am a match director without a home range to host a match at. And believe it or not, I actually went through about 4 different ranges, talking to them, getting into it, like Bluegrass, where Heartbreak is, right? I talked to Bluegrass and started talking to Alan Carmichael about what he goes through to put on Heartbreak. Bluegrass Sportsman's League is a league of clubs that runs a range. So there are 7 different clubs and 7 different boards that he has to get permission to run his match, like to use their range to do his thing. Like the rifle range is the rifle club, and then there's a pistol club, and then there's a black powder club, and there's an archery club, and he goes through all of their territory with the running gun, right? And I knew right away that I was not personable enough to deal with that many people.
Marine gun a Marine, right?
Yeah, I just wasn't going to deal with it. I kind of lucked into Lucas Oil, and there are some politics involved, because like especially that first year out there, 2020. Miss Lorray, she's fantastic. She runs the lodge out there. She kept telling me, Tiger, I'm nervous. Tiger, I don't know. I don't know, Tiger. I don't know. Like, I don't know about all this. I don't know about all this. And my phrase was, Larray, I've got it. Larray, trust me. Trust me for one day. Trust me. And my policy that year, and even this past year, was to make a very small impact on the day-to-day activities, because Lucas Oil is not a gun range. Lucas Oil is a cattle ranch that happens to have a really cool spot that they let us come shoot. They have range bays and stuff, but like the one guy told me, he was like, look, if this isn't going to benefit Lucas Oil in any way, I'll bulldoze those bays and I'll run cattle. Like, that's that's their motto. So it goes back to what Mark was saying. Like, I tell people in my safety briefs, hey, respect this property. Hey, throw a little cash into the Protect the Harvest jar. Let's show them that we support this and that this is good for everybody, and that this is um but yeah, maintaining that small footprint. Like, we do all of our own setup. I'm out there a week ahead of time. I'm out there 2 or 3 times out throughout the year, so that my face stays in the loop, right? They don't just forget about, hey, this thing is happening. Yeah, my politics are completely different than board politics at a semi-public / private range, but keeping the people who make decisions seeing the ledger in the green, right, is really what it's all about. And I say that like I mean, I love the people out there, the Lucas Oil family, the Lucas family, Larray Hankins, like all the Jamie Devney, like all the people who are involved out there are fantastic. They've never once given me a hard time about anything. But I also worked really hard to make that connection and to get the reputation. Like this year, she told me, she was like, yeah, if you need something, if you need a tractor or whatever, you need a bulldozer, let me know and we'll get it arranged. And that's some trust credit that you have to build up over the course of a few years, and then not waste. Like, I don't just, I'm not just going to have them bulldoze me 1,000-yard range just because I want it. I'm going to use the 1,000-yard range that's already there.
So a big thing to
Well,
understand.
sorry,
when you're
Mark.
Go ahead.
Let me interject. And this is just like, I guess, some backstory to where Tiger was coming in. So that bays and stuff, originally that was created for a PCC match, because Lucas Oil, they do gun lubricants. I mean, I probably have some here on my desk. That PCC match gathered a lot of attention, but it also gathered some negative attention. There was some MD stuff. There was range master decisions. There was, I mean, I don't want to go real deep into it. I wasn't there.
Well,
I heard enough from a lot of different sides, but I would take a guess that it left a little bit of a sour taste in some of the Lucas people's mouths, because they really put a lot of work into this. And then a lot of people, for better or worse, I mean, like I said, there's two sides of our story, but it got some attention that was not always positive. And it wasn't anything that the Lucas people did. It was how the match was run and decisions made. But regardless, they put this work into it, and they get kind of a sour taste. So Tiger's coming in. I mean, I think at that point, the only other match they had run was Blue Line, right?
Yeah.
Which went well, because Bruce and Tobin, they put on a great match, and they work well with people. So Tiger was on this area. It's like one bad match, one good match. Now we got this totally other thing. What's going to happen? So, I mean, that speaks to how Tiger's managed it, because it could have, if it didn't go well for Tiger, that could have been it for matches, two bad matches and only one good one. Yeah. So,
actually, it came up this past year because, they went a few years without a range master, and then they decided they were going to try and get back into the gun world bigger, and they hired a guy, and then he was kind of putting some bad tastes and ran off a couple of MDs that were trying to do some stuff. And I actually got a phone call. Hey, here's our new range master. You got to go through him, blah, 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 blah. This and that. And I was super polite. I never met the man in person. But I sent some very, polite emails. Here's what we do. Here's what we're about. and then it turned out he left the company for reasons completely unrelated to anything that had happened with me or with the matches in general. He just left the company, I think, for some personal health issues or something. And I went back to my normal point of contact, and they actually commended me on, hey, you handled what could have been a very sticky situation really well. So, like, you don't have to worry about that in the future. Even if we hire other range masters, you talk to me. Like that was the general consensus was, hey, your point of contact is no longer going to change because you can't do what you do if you have to call 15 different people. Which was great to hear. That was a fantastic interaction to have. So
Yeah, so I want to
So-
build on what Ryan's saying and make it clear that when I say we want to get people involved in boards at ranges, we're not trying to strong arm people. We're not saying this is how the range is going to go. You've always been a trap range, and now you're a 3-gun range, or you're a run and gun range. The idea is that we're presenting a safe and effective way to run a match at a range. And the biggest thing is every shot is fired with an RO. You go to an indoor range anywhere and you say, boy, how'd that round get into the ceiling? Why does the concrete look like the surface of the moon? Like, how does it get that way? It's like, well, that's what happens when you bring shooters in. We don't run like that. We run everything under RO. Everything has somebody is watching you shoot, and we stop you the instant that you're not safe. And that's a big thing that we have to express to them. And that's part, again, it's not strong arming, it's presenting the facts of how we do this game. If it's 3-gun, if it's USPSA, if it's run and gun, it is all under RO. No one touches a pistol without being under RO control. And they will stop you in the instant that you are sending rounds out of the range, or if you're being unsafe in any way. And we could stop this whole podcast now and just talk about all the people that we've sent home from these matches. And so we're
incredibly. You're sounding like a USPSA RO there. Like, let me count the notches on my timer. Let me tell you that. This one guy didn't even fire a shot, and I was able to send him home.
Right, exactly. And so, those sort of things, we're not getting into the politics of it so that we can strong arm a club and say, now you're our club. We're getting into to help them understand the value that we bring to a range. Because
it's in addition to, not instead of.
Exactly. Yeah. And so a lot of clubs are just so focused on, we shoot trap and we make $2 a round on trap, and we always have the same guys come out every Wednesday and they shoot trap, but they don't realize we're bringing in $20 a person every Saturday on, more or less depending on what we're doing. Like, this is a moneymaker for your club, and it's a safe moneymaker. We have ROs at literally every place. So that's an important thing to take away. And it builds on what you're talking about at Lucas. It builds on Clinton County, all those things. It's just fixing that mindset. And we need people to help that. That's why, again, it's not a strong arm thing. It's the volume of people that can appreciate, hey, we do this safe. I've never done anything unsafe. It's building on that. And if I do something unsafe, immediately we stop that. We've sent so many people home.
And I think maybe I'll just speak for myself, but I think a lot of this
Froze.
Figure out how to help
Ryan,
them
you gotta
understand.
start over speaking on you. Just you.
Oh, I cut out?
Yep. We
Okay.
Got you.
So I call it compassion. Call it what you will. It's treating people the way that you would want to be treated, and seeing things from their point of view. So again, I said, to someone on the outside, running around with guns on a bay looks really dangerous. Do you go through and explain like what Mark just explained? Okay, here's how we do this safely. If they're moving and their fingers on the trigger, they're either getting stopped or, maybe they're getting a warning and they're able to correct it if it's something that's correctable. And if it's not, if they don't, they're stopped, explaining that, but putting yourself in their shoes and treating them right, right from the start. That's, there are probably match directors that can steamroll people, but I would say that kind of like steamrolling your opinion over top of someone, you're probably not doing that long, and you're not a successful match director. Like if you own your own range, you can do that I guess. But the range owners I know that run matches generally aren't that kind of person, because it's not good for business.
You're not
You
a
don't
good
walk into
salesman
McDonald's.
at that point.
No, you don't walk into McDonald's and they're like, you're getting a quarter pounder. You're like, actually, I can't eat beef. No, you're getting a quarter pounder. Here's what you're getting. That's it. Or get out of my store. Like that's not how, very few places stay successful like that. And as a match director, you will not be successful like that. I could almost put money on it. Do you want to move on to the next topic there, Mark? I don't want to belabor this too much.
So the next topic is exactly safety. So part of the reason that we have things like USPSA, IDPA, run and gun is that they're sort of, I won't say the word governing body, but they have standards of safety. USPSA has a standard of safety. IDP has a standard of safety. There's no unified run and gun standard of safety, but it's pretty close. You can't find a match where safety slides, people can spin around this way with a gun and it's fine. So we have a standard of safety that comes along with anything that we want to do when we talk about action shooting. And so that's another thing that we want to build into being a match director, right? You choose, if you're USPSA, you choose that rule book. If you're IDPA, you choose that rule book. If you're run and gun, we don't have a rule book, but there's enough kind of standards that you can copy and paste that. We have standards of safety. And so presenting that standard of safety is another part of being a match director. And so both Tiger and Ryan have different versions of that, but they can probably talk to that.
Go ahead. All right. So I'll say one thing that benefited me. I shot before I took over match directing. I'd shot 3-gun competition of some sort for four or 5 years. I had probably been ROing 2.5 of that. So ROing is a good way to see what people do safety wise, because it's your job to pay attention to that. And also, if you pay attention, you'll see where people get stuck. What in a stage, what actions, what lead people to unsafe acts. And I guess if you're new to competition, when we're saying unsafe act, it's generally not a life-threatening act. So as an instance, there are times where a stage will set things up in a way that it's really easy for someone to break the 180. So their muzzles, pointed up range a little bit. Generally, that's not at anybody. So from a safety aspect, no one's life was in danger. But breaking the 180 is getting that one step closer to doing something like that. So we just stop it. So when we talk about safety, while there can be life or death safety stuff, there's a lot of things that we're just really strict about because we don't want it to step up to that life or death. So I want to get that out of the way just in case people are watching this going, what, like I'm going to get shot at a match? No, you probably got more chances of getting shot in New York, subway than you do at a match. Any match in America. Yeah. But so seeing that and understanding, okay, these certain things can lead to unsafe, designing a safe stage is a really good way. All the rules in the world go out the window when you set up an environment that makes it really easy to break that rule, if that makes sense. So there's certain things I do. It's just like, well, if I can have a dump barrel, I can move this dump barrel in 3-gun 5 yards back so that they have to stop there to dump it. Now they don't get in front of these first 2 targets or 4 targets. They're not going to break the 180 there because these targets are, at the 170 mark, and everything else is in front of that. Little things like that you can design into a stage ahead of time and really kind of set people up for success. Having said that, I will design things in that don't tempt people to do it, but to have a good stage, I don't want to have every target on the back line. So there are targets they're going to be shooting and they're going to be walking in front of. So you can't take it all out. There's times where people are just going to make mistakes, but there certainly are things as a match director, especially if you've RO'd, that you'll kind of see, this is kind of a gotcha. Especially if you get to know, like if you run the same match, I run a monthly match for the last 4 years, 3-4 years. So I kind of know my general shooter's level. And there are things that if I was putting on a major match, people coming all over, I might do. But my locals, okay, well, there's some new guys. They've been coming. They're still getting used to it. I maybe want to err on the side of caution here because it could set up a bad environment for them. So I think that's one real easy way. And then the other one is just having good ROs. Your range officers are your lifeblood. Treating them right, getting them kind of schooled up, being there, having their back, kind of helping them out. I think that's a big thing. And then raising up new ROs. You put that experienced RO on the stage, you put someone that's willing to help out. Okay, you're the secondary RO. You can score, run the tablet or the timer when he can't, and they'll start learning. So now you got an experienced guy to kind of take this guy under his wing. So I think that's a couple, real easy ways to maybe set yourself up for success at your match if you can.
Yeah. It's I thought I knew a lot about safety at matches the first couple years that I MD'd. Like I thought I had it pretty well figured out. And then I decided in 2020 to make it a team match. And oh boy, did that change things. When you have two people in the same space actively moving in different directions and firing at different targets, and maybe they're talking to each other and maybe they're not, maybe there's a wall in between them and they can't tell if they're flagging, and oh my god, like it keeps me up at night sometimes, which is fine because I don't sleep much anyways, but I'm up here talking to you guys. But it's safety is paramount, and you go back to talking about connecting back to the first topic. Like it's whenever you're pitching this, you got to tell people, look, everybody is going to be safe. We're going to do this. We're not going to run with loaded rifles, the whole course. Like, this is going to happen. Well, on this stage, you're going to be climbing up. How do you keep somebody from flagging themselves with a loaded rifle? Well, they don't load until they get to the top, or they don't load until they're in the Humvee, or, if you're across this line, it's wrong. And all of that. And stage design is a huge, huge, huge part of that. But like Ryan said, once you start getting a feel for what people can do, can't do, and it's for me, I market Zombie as a beginner's match. Something that's not too crazy. You don't have to be ex special forces to do Zombie or anything. Anybody can do it. So I play to the lowest common denominator, right? Like if somebody just bought an AR-15 and a Glock 19 3 weeks beforehand, and they've put 100 rounds through both of them, and they've taken a 100Z safety course, they can do Zombie, which sometimes means my stages may not be as dynamic as other matches, but they're safe, and I think they're fun. So, that's a big part of it. And then Ryan made the point. ROs are your lifeblood. I struggled for a couple years because that first 3 Gun for Vets match that Matt Sennett did, he had a crew of ROs come to his match that he had been shooting with for a decade. He'd been shooting 3-gun and high power, and like he knew all of these guys and they knew how he operated. And I just kind of assumed that my first match was going to be just loaded with, very experienced people. And I got lucky in that about 10 or 12 signed up to help, right? Of his ROs. Bruce Perry showed up to my first match and had met me one time, and he came and helped RO it, and that was huge. And I make that offer to a lot of people too. I'm like, look, if I can be there for your first match, I will help you in any way possible, because like you said, raising up new ones takes good experienced ones to start. At this point, I have a crew of 30. I'm turning people away because I have 30 or 40 or 50 people who want to help, which is great. And a lot of them are match directors. Ryan, he comes out to run my match. Matt Stennett, Ellis Dominant, like Wes Bennett, like all of these people who run their own matches come out, and or if you look at Legion's RO list last year, there were 75 people who showed up and 40 of them were match directors. Like it's an insane, and then that goes to another thing. If you want to be a match director, go help other people. Go watch how other people do stuff, because the safety standards, like we said, are there, but that you're never too safe to learn new safety measures. The high value targets that you talked about in our last episode that Ellis put in, that's huge. I may steal that. That's a great thing that I think originally came from Bruce Davidson, years ago. And you learn all these tips and tricks to keep people safe, because and Stennett says it in his every safety brief. You can have the coolest match in the world, but if somebody puts a bullet through themselves, it puts a pretty big damper on the day. And for running gun, it may not even be a bullet through themselves. It could be most likely a sprained ankle on the course, right? Like, and there's nothing you can do for that. Like, there's no safety measure that you can do to change that. But people getting hurt, if I have a 14-foot wall or whatever, and somebody climbs up and then falls off and breaks an arm, that's just as much of a damper to me as if they put a hole in their hand. So you got to start balancing, okay, what's the safety risk of going up and over something versus maybe a barbed wire crawl, right? Which one's better? So a lot of things to think about. But yeah, safety is and will always be first and foremost and paramount as far as match directors go. And if you're not, like, if you are one of the famous people who say, oh, we play by the big boy rules here and we don't do any of that, you're probably not it. Like, that's not a good that's a good thing to say when you're a competitor, sort of, and but when you're a match director, it's really not the greatest thing in the world.
No, because you've got, as you said, you got the lowest common denominator or the highest. Listen, if me, Tiger, Mike Ford, Mark, we all go out shooting together, we're holstering, we're not unloading and showing each other clear. Like, we're not doing the 3-gun stuff. We're comfortable enough. We know each other. We'll do that. If I bring my neighbor next door and he wants to come out shooting, well, now things change. I know he's got guns. I've never shot with him. I don't know what his level is. We're probably doing things a lot different because now we've got an unknown. And when you got a match of 100 people that you don't know, again, one more thing. Go on.
Yeah. Or like the lady who I'm friends with, her husband, and they were looking for her to have a new carry pistol. They came over to the house and we laid out 10 pistols for her to try before she bought a new carry pistol. I ran that like it was a USPSA Grand National Champ. Like, she unloaded, showed clear. Like, and I was like, we're going to take this very, very, very slow because you have no idea what you're doing. Like, so we're going to break it down Barney style, do it by the numbers, right? Like, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely. And I say that, you're talking about us, none of us are pointing guns at each other. That's the reason we're comfortable doing it. We all have a muzzle awareness. We all have the skills that we're not worried about that. But that's not how you run a match. What you do in your buddy's backyard is one thing. And I've been out with people that were comfortable and we still unload and show each other clear just because maybe the situation, that's just the better way to do it. It all depends on context. But a match is not the place for quote unquote big boy rules. Well, everyone will just do what they're. No, if you got strangers and you don't know and you got 100 people, just extra safe. If it gets 20 people I know and I'm all really comfortable shooting with them one-on-one, when it gets to that, 20, we're still unloading and showing clear, and it's just,
we're not all big boys.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say before maybe we go on topics is when you set up stages, if you can, having another MD or a top competitor, someone that's really got experience, proof your stages, walk through it, check it, look for safety stuff. They will find things that you missed. They will find gotchas, areas that you're like, why would anyone shoot from there? They'd be like, well, I can see this target here and it's kind of on the edge of the 180 and I'm kind of shooting, could hit this, whatever it is. And I find a lot of them because I'm a gamer myself, but like you find that gamer, he's going to find that thing that you're like, yeah, kind of missed that. That's not what I wanted to do. Or that's maybe sets people up for failure. Finding that would be experienced RO, top shooter, MD. And I will say you probably don't find a ton of top level shooters that don't also RO. Like I have trouble naming many of them that haven't RO'd at some point in their career. Because if you're serious about, I'll say this now, if you're serious about getting into the shooting sports, it's a volunteer organization. If it's not to say that every match you're ROing, every match you're MDing, but if you're never volunteering to do anything, to set up a match, tear down, to RO, to like, someone's talking about you behind your back and bitching about you because very few places are people making money off of matches. Like the ranges sometimes do, but even then it's not sort of. But it's like you're paying to take over their range for the entire day and disrupt their regular business. So like, don't think like, well, what am I? I've had people ask me at my local match, well, what are we paying for then if they're not paying you? You're paying for this range to be here. Like I'm volunteering. This is my time. I'm coming out Saturdays and Sundays and dealing with board stuff and practice score. Like, because I want to grow the shooting sports in the 2A, I'm not making a dime off of this. Trust me, even though I could turn in slips, our running matches cost me way more money than the $20 entry fee that I'm getting comped for volunteering.
In 5 years of running matches, I've made enough money to buy 8 Subway sandwiches and a cooler.
Yeah. Like it's so if you're just like, well, where's all this money going? Probably to the range to help keep it there. They joke on the 3-gun memes board about like Chad Francis and his Range Rover. Like people are not driving Ferraris to the range because of your 3-gun match, once a month, or your running gun match. So if you're not volunteering, get out and volunteer. Mark, I've sidetracked that. If we got another subject you want to go on to.
No, you guys you're doing a great topic here, and I want to just build on this a little bit more. I know we've kind of belabored this point to ad nauseum at this point, but
ROs deserves it.
ROs are a big deal, and so we got to talk about this on a couple different levels. One, there's certain training for ROs, and most of it comes from the USPSA and IDPA. And I know this. See, Ryan's scrunching his face. But the USPSA class is actually a 2-day class on being an RO. And that matters. You say, what does it take to be an RO? There's some actual knowledge, skills, and abilities to be an RO. And so when you say, I'd love to be a match director, which is kind of the point of this talk, who are you going to get? Well, people that shot a lot, people my buddies, my whatever. There's some value in people that have had a class in USPSA or IDPA. And even you'd really now getting into the lucky time is 3-Gun Nation for a while had some classes, and Ryan's shaking his head because he took the class with me.
3-Gun Nation certified.
Yeah.
Don't want to brag.
So a couple of us, there wasn't too many, but there was a couple of us that took the Three Gun Nation RO class, and it was very good. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like, how do you operate a active, action shooting event and make it safe? And there's certain things that go along with this. What are you looking for? What do you expect of shooters? How do you want them to operate? And so we have policies and procedures that go along with that. Now, other people are like, oh, yeah, brung what you gun, you blah, 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 we'll do this thing. But there's a reasonable reason for that, So you say to yourself, all right, I want to be a match director. I want to be successful. Let's start with basic principles. Has somebody had just the most basic education in how to be an RO? You don't have to be that guy that wears the orange vest at your local range and says, 1 second between every round or 3 seconds between every trigger pull. Not that guy, but like, do you appreciate that? Here's the commands that we're going to give somebody. Are you ready? Stand by. Those sort of things. Can we at least have consistency for competitive equity? Maybe, hopefully. Would that be valuable? So when we're talking about how do I become a match director, put those sort of things out like, hey, has anybody RO'd before? Has anyone run a match before? Do you understand how a timer works? You see a lot of those guys that stand like this with their timer right behind the guy's ear, like the entire time. Like, do you realize the sound? You can hold it back here. The timer picks it up. We got sound. It's coming there. So basic things like that in terms of ROs. So we can take this another level. We can say, Ryan, Tiger, if you have a match coming up, how do you bring in ROs? Is this kind of a social media thing? Is this kind of a match inertia thing? Is this a club thing? So this is an important thing if you want to be a match director. Where do you get those people that have, again, just the smallest amount of experience being a match director? Do you guys have any kind of comments on that?
I would say it helps to not be a dick, but as we already heard, Tiger has good luck with getting ROs, so clearly you can still be a dick and get ROs. But he's a lovable dick, and I think that's really where no. So again, I had institutional inertia. I had people that already knew about the match when it was started, and had that experience. And I had volunteered, early on, like it was only a month or two into Three Gun that I started helping set up and tear down. And then there was a little bit later till I felt seasoned and comfortable enough to start ROing. And I was nervous as could be when I first started ROing. And actually, early on, when I would RO big 3-gun matches, man, I would get so nervous leading up to that because I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want anyone to be unsafe. I don't want to make the wrong call or something like that. I mean, it would keep me up a little bit. But I think making those contacts, getting people, when I'm having my running gun match, that takes more ROs than a 3-gun match. So I've got to talk to people, and sometimes I got to go ahead of time and kind of say, hey, are you going to be able to make this? Do you mind ROing? Here's my plan. So but I think if you were just starting from scratch, you're not really in the shooting community at all, and you want to start a match, it'd be really hard to get ROs. I would say if starting a match is something you want, get into a community, because once you're in that community, the people who want to volunteer will find you. You put the call out, and someone's there to start to help out. I mean, it's running gun, 3-gun's a good community to be in.
So I want to interrupt Tiger before you say that. So if you are truly just starting out, the USPSA will send out a certified instructor to give a class at your place. And so you're going to have to pay for it. And the people that get the instruction are going to have to pay for it. But if we want to circle back to how do we make this palatable for a board at a gun range? let's say I'm a member at Central Southern Utah Gun Range, and I want to make this happen. How am I going to convince them? Well, I had so and so from the USPSA ROI. How do you say that? The Range Officers Institute came out and they trained 12 people. Now 12 people are instructed as ROs, and now they're going to run our match and they're going to train other people. We're going to build on that. So if we want to circle back again, it's all building this thing together. It's not any one of these things on our own. Do you have the good range? Sure. Do you have the ROs? Maybe. Do you have the understanding of how to run a match? Okay. It's all these things together. So can you bring people that understand these things and make this happen and send it, push it up in your club so you can make these matches happen? I think that's really important to understand as we go forward. Now, interrupting and going back to Tiger, I'm sure he's going to build on that too.
Yeah, you talk about how I got my core of ROs. I kind of did the same thing as Ryan. I used a little bit of inertia. I basically carbon copied Matt Sennett's RO email list and sent out, "Hey, I'm running this other match, and does anybody want to come help?" And like I said, I got really lucky, and like 12 people from those 30 signed up, right? Like I was like, "Oh, thank God! I at least have enough to cover my stages, right? Like I can put this on." And then yeah, a couple buddies from the Marine Corps, one of my best friends from a couple, the next county over. I mean, at this point, I use his box trailer, and me and him ride out to Missouri together. Like he drives me there, he hauls all my shit. But it goes back to that community, and yeah, whenever you talk about it, like my first conversations with Lucas Oil, they were like, well, talking about the cost of putting a match on. And they were like, well, it's this much to rent the range. It's this much to rent the lodge. It's this much to use, this feature. It's for this much to do this. Porta potties are this much, blah, 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 blah. The ambulance is this much. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, stop. What? And they said, well, we hire an ambulance to be on standby for all of our matches so that we have an EMT. I was like, cut that out. And she was like, what? I was like, I don't need it. And she goes, what do you mean you don't need it? I was like, I have 5 ROs that are nationally certified EMTs that will show up. Like I know they're coming this year. They've already told me they're coming this year. 5 of them, nationally certified EMTs. They're all bringing go bags. Like you don't have to do this. And she was like, can you send me their certs? And I sent out a mass text, and half an hour later sent her, and that went again a long way to her being like, oh, this isn't just a bunch of local yokels, podunk, rednecks who with guns that want to come out and blow shit up, right? This is a group of trained individuals who kind of sort of have their shit together.
We like them though. The rednecks with guns that want to blow shit up. We like them too. So don't say that.
I am that guy.
We don't say that in a negative way. So
no,
just
I am that guy. But but it went a long way, like you said, to building that goodwill, and now I have the match inertia, right? Like I have a list, I have all my RO slots filled right now, but I went ahead and kept taking names. Even now I'm 10 months out, right? Like for being able to put this match on. And I'm still taking names for ROs because a lot can happen in 10 months, right? Every year, 8 or 10 ROs back out sometime in August.
A baby.
Huh?
A baby.
A baby. Yeah. No shit, right? Like, and I tell people all the time, look, real life always takes precedence. This is a game. This is not, this is, yes, I want you there, but if you can't make it, don't feel bad. That's another thing. Don't be a dick to your ROs if your ROs have something going on, like having a kid, or hey, I can't make the travel costs, or hey, me and my wife are going on an anniversary trip instead of shooting match this year. Okay, cool. I'll call you next year, right? Like that's the proper response here. And it goes back to what Ryan said on the first point. Treating people like people is a huge part of being, a match director is a quote unquote leadership position. And if you can't handle that, then, but please do, please. And another thing, use all of your resources. If you're watching this and you've hung out with us for an hour at this point, and we're not even halfway done probably, and and you think that you're still like gung ho, I want to start a match, get a hold of Ryan, get a hold of me, call Matt Stennett, call Ellis. Like, if we won't come RO for you, I've actually got a Zoom call with Jerry Long coming up this week. He's putting on a new running gun in Wisconsin, and he's like, "Hey, I want to pick your brain on some stuff, practice score wise, and stage design wise, and all that." And I'm like, "Sweet, I'm all for it. I can't make the match. He's doing it the first week I'm going back to school, and I just can't do it." But yes, use me. Here's my Rolodex. Here's my RO list. Here's my whatever. Like, I've got people who are going from around here. Do you need steel? Do you need whatever? So use all your resources. But I know I veered off the topic of how did I get my initial group of ROs. Blind luck and wholesale thievery was the use there.
Well, I think the big main point is that like we do these matches for the love of the game and the love of the 2A. That's I tell people, and it's true. The more people in competition, the stronger our 2A rights are. And as much as it's a fun game, like 2A rights aside, it's a fun game. It really is. That the 2A is important. Our constitutional rights are important, and the more people we get into that, the stronger that is, and the easier it is to keep those rights. So
the more
and a lot of the community feels the way
becomes.
Yep, and a lot of people in the community feel that way, so they don't mind, reaching. Like Mike Tiger said, taking time out of his day to talk to another match director and get him geared up, because we want more matches, we want more people shooting, we want a better country out of it. So I don't want to get too idealized, because there's also the fact that it's just fun. All that other stuff aside, it's fun.
I'm
people
a redneck who likes blowing shit up.
Yeah, people spend a ton of time. I'll give an example. Doing fantasy football, and they will spend hours talking to other people on fantasy football. Why? Because they like it. We like this, so we like talking to people about it. But then we also have that kind of greater goal in it, and that goes a long way too. So I don't know, Mark. How many more topics do we have here? We probably don't want to go too much longer.
As far as you want to go, but one that we can build on from what Tiger was talking about is equipment. So one of the examples of being a match director, one of the things, this has been years now, probably even a decade at this point, in Minnesota specifically, when it came to 3-gun, they had this idea that, hey, we have a lot of ranges that can do practical shooting. How can we make 3-gun happen in each of these range? And so they started a thing called Minnesota 3-gun Group. And so when they would travel from each range to range for their monthly matches, they had all the steel in a trailer. And that trailer would go from match to match, and that's how they'd have their 3-gun matches. So we could talk about the idea of, you have a certain amount of equipment that's required to have a match, and maybe your range has it, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you need to start thinking about, how can we make this happen? Ohio, I know specifically, has 3 or 4 ranges in the southwestern corner that can make this happen. Now, I know they don't share equipment, but it's something that can happen.
Well, we don't have that many matches now, but we did, yeah.
Okay, well, I've been out for a while, but same thing goes for 3-gun. Tiger just said we've got a whole tractor trailer, or not tractor trailer, but let's say horse trailer, because Tiger's a horse person, you can't trust them. But you got a whole horse trailer full of steel targets. How do you make a match happen without equipment? Well, paper's easy, but paper's slow when we talk about resetting. How do we make steel make this match happen?
I'll start, I guess.
Yeah.
as far as equipment goes, that first year, again, I used a lot of Rockcastle steel. They were a well-established range. They had the targets. Um, then the second year, I used a lot of my own because I had acquired some, and I liked mine better than theirs. I liked the way it's set up better. A couple years in, the first year, and even out at Lucas, they have a bunch of steel. They really do. I use all of my own because, again, it goes back to that small footprint. And at this point, I have a literal ton of steel. I haven't ever weighed it, but I would bet my last dollar that I have in the last 5 years acquired 2,000 pounds or more of steel. Everything from my giant S10 hoods down to 1-inch teardrops, and I use all of it. And beyond steel targets, it's things like one thing that I'm going to do this year, or try to do a little bit better, is I'm going to try and get some chloroplast signs made. Matt's Tennant's always really good. I guess he's got to hook up to chloroplast boards that he then stencils arrows on to show markers, right? I typically have just used paper silhouettes and drawn on them with a Sharpie.
Just steal political signs.
Yeah.
They're politicians. They're really stealing from us in the first place. So steal signs.
Yeah, and that's but we talked about it a little bit. It may not have even made it into the freaking episode last time. Marking tape for running it. 3-gun, you don't need marking tape, right? Or maybe you do. You may need to mark out a box or something, but for running gun, you need to be able to mark a course. Shooting boxes, you need to have something to demarcate where a shooter can run to, where he can't run to. If you get into stuff with barricades, if you get into stuff with, Ryan talked about on the last episode, the stage had tires, like obstacles, all that stuff is quote unquote equipment. Shot timers. How are you taking the scores? That you can take it with a laptop and an Excel spreadsheet. I did that my first year. It worked out great. It really did. It's very simple to do it that way. Now I'm a practice score supporter because practice score is the greatest thing to happen to the shooting sports since probably the shot timer. And as a supporter, I give them enough money that they send me a batch of iPads to use, and it's awesome. It's a great service that I take advantage of. If you're a match director, you don't support practice score, I hope you have your own system. Like that's, and that's great if you do. There are a few, Ellis is one of them, right? He uses his own system. He wants to be entirely in-house, but he had to develop that system. He didn't just have it, right? Like practice score is pretty plug and play. Other equipment that you might need is, I drive a lot of T-posts. A lot of T-posts go in the ground. So you need the T-post, you need the driver. Side-by-sides for run and gun are huge because you're setting up a full course, right? So if you don't want to walk 6 miles every time you set up a stage carrying steel, you need something to haul it with. So the trailer that we talked about, it can get really, 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 really equipment heavy. On the flip side of that, I set up a small course here at my house with 15 pieces of steel and a couple of trash cans to mark a shooting box here and there, and single signs that say, hey, turn around here and run back. Like I had probably $100 in it, and it was a full 5K run and gun course, right, that people can follow and come and shoot, and it's all at my house. So
we'll put his address. His full address will be in the YouTube comments. Anyone that wants to just show up there, you just go ahead. It's available.
Yeah, good luck.
I'd recommend level 4. I'd recommend level 4 armor, but I mean, take the chance.
Jeff Ford says, to get to my house, you turn off of a dirt road onto a dirtier road. But yeah,
definitely level 4 then.
Yes, definitely level 4. But like I would say to run a major match, like a pro-am level match, you need a lot of equipment. if you're just starting out, you want to run something at your local range. First of all, use the range's equipment as much as they will let you, right? Like if you have to follow some silly rules the first time, follow the silly rules, get the inertia going, get the flow rolling, but don't be afraid of the massive amount of, like, you don't need the 24-foot box trailer, right? Full of shit. You just don't. But it's real nice. It makes for real cool stuff. But you know, another thing that I have those flashers. Bruce Davidson took up the collection for the flashers, and I chipped in on that. So now I have access to 16 Magneto Speed flashers, and I use them every match, and they're great. They work fantastic for long range. So, and that's another thing. Pull your resources. If you've got 4 or 5 match directors in one area, like you said, the Minnesota 3-gun group has one trailer full of steel. Pull your resources. Like, use what's available. So I've probably rambled enough here. So,
All right, I'll give a couple really. So, one, be creative. You can do a lot with a little bit if you get creative with it. I mean, for example, my last running gun, I had 2 targets down there. You ran 50 yards up range, shot 2 rifle plates, so they're a little bit bigger, 3 of them, I think, but you're shooting them at 50 yards. Well, 50 yards on a plate, like, a bigger plate is more akin to like 35, 25 yards on a regular plate, and like what would be considered a piece of pistol steel, 8-inch round or something. So after that, you ran back and you shot those same targets with rifle. Well, there's a stage, 3 pieces of steel, 6 shots. Maybe you do that twice, or you do it from different positions or something like that. You can get a long stage. You can time people out with 3 pieces of steel if you get creative with it. So don't think every stage has to have, 50 pieces of steel on it. So kind of you can be creative with that. Hit it from different positions, hit it from different boxes, whatever. So I did, as I said, I came from established match. They had some steel, they had target stands. So initially that wasn't a concern of mine, but over the years, I have gotten steel better suited for what we do. We had a ton of poppers. We did a big match, bought a bunch of MGM stuff. We had a ton of poppers, big circus steel. They're fun. They make reset longer in a 3-gun match. It's not a big deal. In running gun, it's a little bit bigger of a deal. But it's also like moving a Texas Star, moving a bunch of full-size poppers is a pain in the butt. Like, they weigh a lot. They weigh a decent amount. So moving that stuff's a lot. So I've been getting no reset steel, stuff that just sits on a plate on a stand that you can call hits on. We've done that through just putting on matches and bringing in a lot of people, and then the range says, hey, we're going to give you, last year I got $1,000 to spend on steel. I bought about $900 from Bluegrass Targets. So if you need steel, go check him out. He sponsors a lot of matches. So when
sports. Yep.
He's somewhat local to us. So it was like, well, when I needed steel, and there's other steel people if there's that sponsor matches, but he's close to us. I said, hey, here's what I need. He gave me a great deal on it. We were able to go pick it up in person, save on shipping, done deal. One of our guys actually has bought a lot of steel that he loans to the match because for a year or two, during COVID, we would collect all our shotgun hulls. He would clean them up and he would sell them. I mean, he bought a couple $100 worth of steel that he loans out to different matches just by collecting hulls and selling them to shotgun shooters. I mean, that's free money that we were throwing away before. Obviously, with running gun, we're not doing that. But if you get creative, maybe you have everyone police their brass, and instead of putting it in their brass pile, start, just have everyone agree, hey, it's a lost brass match. We're all going to collect it. We're going to sell the brass, or maybe competitors buy it back, and we're going to raise money for steel that way. I mean, there's ways to raise money for steel if that's what you want to do. But I'd say that's a couple really easy, kind of creative, quick ways to start amassing some steel and other targets that you need. I mean, it's not all just steel, it's barricades, and we didn't quite get into that, but gosh, I've built a ton of barricades and spent very little money. pallets, couple 4x4s. You make a hedgehog, tank trap, stick. I mean, I've built a couple from. I ripped up an old deck and I had grabbed what good lumber was left off of it, put that together. I've had some wood donated from a job site. I mean, there's lots of ways to build, old tires. There's a lot of ways to build creative stages with steel, with barricades, with different things. If you just look around and honestly, especially with barricades, the more made from the real world and less like plywood cut VTAC boards, I think sometimes the better. A ladder that you buy from the thrift store for $5 that maybe it's too rickety to climb on, the old wood ladder you see there. Ladders make a good barricade. Spray paint each step, shoot from orange, blue, red, green, whatever it is. Number them. Number them, please. Don't just do colors, because colorblind people, we can't see color. So number them if you're going to do colors.
What
too.
about dyscalculia people? I don't want to hear your shit.
Yeah.
All right.
All
so
right.
I'm going to wrap this episode up. We could talk about this for another half hour. I want to say a couple things. One of the main topics we've talked about is building on inertia, getting involved in the small level and working your way up. And one of the ways we can do this is with IDPA and USPSA. I know Ryan, see how Ryan's face already grimaces? He can't shoot pistols, so of course he's not going to want to do that. Joking aside, starting with small things like that, they bring in money. That's another thing we haven't talked about, is that you can bring in money with these kind of events. When we're charging 20, 25, so sometimes some clubs only 15, some clubs $30+ per shooter per weekend. You bring in money, all the things we talked about steel and targets, all that stuff adds up. So institutional inertia, that's a big deal. And so that's one of the big things with being a match director. Another thing is advertising. We bring in more people through things like Practice Score. We bring in people through Facebook. We bring in things through word of mouth, stuff like that. All that matters. So we do all those things as a match director or as a future match director. If you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I'd like to give it a shot, maybe I'll start with something small, just a pistol match. And we talk about how small it is. Winter matches in an indoor range where they shoot 3 stages on an indoor range for USPSA. And then that builds. You're getting money. You're getting $10 per person per week. And they do that every Monday of all winter. That money adds up. We talk about how much steel costs. We talk about how much getting ROs, all that stuff. We're going to build. So those sort of things, advertising, start small, build up. Safety is key. We absolutely cannot afford to have any sort of mishaps on these matches. The first thing that's going to destroy anything we're trying to do is, oh, you hear about run and gun? Yeah, people die doing that. We do not want to have that. So we want to take safety. We want to start small and build. We want to use network effects, meaning, hey, Ryan, do you know an RO in Wisconsin? No, you know somebody in Minnesota, you drive to Wisconsin? Okay, yeah, he'll come there. Those sort of things, network effects. We want to start with small steel, build up, or small paper targets, build up. All these things are what we want you to do if you're thinking, hey, this sounds pretty cool. There's a pretty well-established community in the Ohio, Kentucky region. We've got Ellis down in the Carolina region. We've got people in the Oklahoma and Texas region. And then we got USPSA everywhere. That's a national body. And so you say like, oh, I shoot USPSA, but it's not my favorite. I'd love to get my rifle involved. Well, maybe start working your way in. You're working your way up. Now you say to your club, hey, let's do 2-gun. Let's start with PCC and pistol. And then you work your way up to rifle caliber and things like that. that's what we're looking for here. That's what we're trying to sell to you. That's what we're sell. Like you're gonna listen to this and be like, oh, get on the sponsors here, but you get what I'm saying. We're just trying to get you excited about this stuff because we're excited about this, and that's why we do this. We're not gaining anything from this. There's a lot that you could gain from it. We talked about the friendships, the connections, the ROs that we get from this stuff, and so that's value added, and that's really what we're going for here. So I know we went a little bit longer than we wanted to, but I think we really covered a lot of stuff here that, this is bare bones stuff. There's no document that you can read and get what you just got from this podcast. And so that's what we're really going for here. And I'll let Ryan and Tiger both add anything they want to add. Like I said, we could go another 30, 40 minutes on this, and maybe we will later. Maybe we'll do like advanced match director stuff, but I'll pass it off to Ryan, and he'll tell you what he thinks.
Yeah, Tiger, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I can sum it up. So I would say, in order of importance, safety first, fun second, third thing for success is, and we didn't really touch on it, but is be open to feedback. I've seen more RO or match directors kind of shoot themselves in the foot because people try to give them meaningful feedback and they can't take it. And when you we put a lot into these matches. So if someone has something negative to say about it, it can be hard to take because we thought we did a great job. We put a lot of effort into it. But if you put your ego aside and listen to what they're saying, not saying take every piece of criticism or feedback and act on it. I've had people that will give me feedback and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I hear it. I hear what you're saying, but that's not what we're doing here. That's, I'm considering it, but it's not something that I'm going to act on. But then if the same people or if most people say the same thing, hey, we want this. Hey, I like this. Or I don't like when you do this, but I like when you do this. You're kind of these are kind of your paying customers, I mean, I know we're talking about volunteering, but people are paying to do this. They're coming to your match. They're customers. If they're all asking for something, it's kind of worth listening to it. So, and kind of setting your ego aside, which is hard. But yeah, if you're safe, fun, and open to feedback, you're probably put on a pretty successful match. Maybe not your first one. Man, there's a lot to learn. I mean, I've done 3 running gun sprinters after years of 3-gun matches, and I still learn something new every time. I mean, the first one ran well. People loved it, but it really didn't flow well. It was not well run for what I felt. I mean, I had people were very awesome about it, and the way they handled the chaos of it. The second one went better. The third one went better. I learned something each time. So don't do this if you just think like I'm gonna crush it the first time, because you're probably not. It really, there's a ton to learn about doing these. So yeah, be open to that feedback. Tiger, I guess take us home.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to touch on is and you're right, it is hard to take constructive criticism, right? Like, but also be cognizant of what your vision is of the match, right? Like Zombie, like I know I'm a shameless self promoter, right? Like it's terrible. But I get people who bitch at me every single year. My rifle can't reach out to those distances. Okay, like I'm sorry that I'm designing this match for people who like to shoot those distances. My plate rack stage, man, I failed your plate rack stage three years in a row. Oh well, shoot more pistol. Like I don't know what I don't want to tell you. Those things fit within my vision of the match. Simultaneously, if someone says, "Hey, that VTAC board that was color coded, I'm colorblind and I couldn't see 4 of the colors, so I was really screwed on that stage," or hey, I didn't feel like it was okay on that stage where you had the code on the stage before that I was maybe supposed to notice, but nobody even told me I was supposed to notice it. It was just randomly in the background. So I failed this stage even before I got there, right? Like, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Or a couple years ago, I had a little Paw Patrol puzzle in the middle of my course, right? Like, and people were like, it was jarring. Like, it took me out of my mental space because all of a sudden I'm putting together a cartoon dog, and that kind of threw the experience for me. I was like, okay, so they weren't mad about it being a puzzle, which is what the vision was. They were mad about it being a Paw Patrol puzzle. Okay, if I want to use puzzle in the future, do something that's less, less in your face, right? Or okay, so the code needs to be maybe on the course between the two stages instead of in the middle of one stage, or whatever. They're not mad about the purpose of the ideas, but the execution wasn't right. Like, keep to the purpose, right? Like, the purpose for my plate rack stage is to get people better with their pistol, because I think that people need to be better with their pistols. We all love shooting rifles. Rifles are easy to shoot. Pistols are harder. People don't like shooting pistols, but in a defensive situation, 99% of the time, it's going to be a pistol. You need to be better. Long range stuff. I like shooting long range, so I put on a match where I shoot a lot of long range. That's my style. I think people should stretch out a little bit more. I'm not going to change that, but I will change the puzzle, or I will change the obstacle, or I will change. Hey, if somebody says, "Hey, I didn't feel safe with this stage design," I really stand up and take notice of that, right? Especially if it's an RO or an MD, like at the end of the match. Hey, man, we ran it. It ran okay, but here's how that could have gone badly. Here's what I saw after I watched 60 people run through it. That's the other thing. Really listen to the ROs, because the ROs are watching everybody from the John Hutts of the world to the brand new shooters who, not to pick on you, but to the Kayla Rebkes, right? The John Hutts to the Kayla Rebkes shooting the stage. Okay, here's what Kayla Rebke did, and here's what she did right, and followed all the safety rules. Here's what John Hutt did, and here's what he did right. But here's how a gamer fast shooter was actually less safe than this person who was focused on it so much. Or here's how this person who has no idea what they're doing was less safe than this person who's so confident with guns it's all second nature. Pay attention to that kind of criticism. And like Ryan said, don't expect it to be a home run your first time. We're not all Matt Stennett. Um, you know, uh, uh, honest feedback. I've been a match director for 5 years now. I have yet to sell an event out. And you guys hear me bitch about it year round, right? Like I do. It bothers me, and I haven't found the secret sauce, right?
Sell less tickets.
Yeah, well, that's the plan this year.
20 people at sellout. No, I'm just kidding.
But and you're gonna have moments of doubt as a match director. If you don't, you're probably not doing it right. But you surround yourself with that good community, that inertia that Mark keeps talking about. The community, it is great. And if you really think you want to be a match director, reach out to us, let us know, comment. This is all going on YouTube. We tend to forget that. We get in here and start bullshitting and tend to forget where this is actually going. Comment, tell us what you want to hear. Do you want that advanced match directors? Do you want to hear how we contact sponsors, how we put together stages, how we lay out courses, how we build obstacles and barricades and stuff? Like, do you want nitty gritty details on that? Because we can do that. Or if you guys want to just hear about, the gear review on the Faro Slingster, Slingster Faro rod, whatever, blah, 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 we can do that too. Like, but this was I feel like a fairly informative podcast, even though we've gone significantly over what we intended. And I feel like we didn't hit all the topics Mark wanted to hit, but, like I said, reach out if you're going to build something, because you probably have a cool idea that none of us have thought about, and we want to run your match too.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll leave, something lighthearted.
Wait, I got
Mark,
one more
yes.
thing. So one thing
Of
I
course.
wish I would have thought of 40 minutes ago was that we talked a lot about ROs, we talked about match directors. The big thing, especially for Ryan's sake, is the volunteers that aren't the ROs or aren't the match directors, the people that help set up and tear down. That stuff's so critical, and we miss that in this whole discussion. And that's a big key. If you have those people, nurture them. Like, don't burn them out. Make sure you're doing everything you can to say, hey, you're new. You're going to gain value by being out here setting stuff up. And we could talk about that a lot longer, but I just had to touch on that before we go on. So, Tiger.
And buy your wife flowers, because if you're an MD, she's going to be mad at you.
Good point. So let me end on a lighthearted thing, because Tiger's talking about stages and this and that, and the plate rack too hard. You will design stages that are way too hard, and you're just like, I missed the mark there. That was really, really hard. You also design stages that are hard but doable. When those people come to you and be like, I don't really like that stage, your pistol was too hard and the rifle was this, and I say this half jokingly, suck less. Like, there's people there will be people complain about it because they did poorly on it, and more than likely, if more people than not finished it, they just need to suck less and something to go home. And that's what we're all looking for. What do we suck at, and how do we get better?
And you'll also design stages you think are going to be hard that turn out to be blazer stages, and just be okay with that. Like, just be like, all right, that's great. Like,
every match needs a gimme stage that like just about everyone gets. It's still fun, a little bit challenge, but you would design some, people will complain, and I just tell them suck less. It's the easiest way. Shoot fast and don't miss. The whole sport's done. All right, thanks for hanging with us, and have a great night.